This time we're going to convert from decimal, which is a base 10 numbering system, to hexadecimal, which is a base 16. So let's take the number 185 base 10, and we're going to convert that into hexadecimal. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing my lines. And I'm going to start with getting on my drawing tools. I'm going to start with my ones position. This is hexadecimal. So I can go more than one place into 185. So let me draw my 16th place. 16 will go more than one place. So I'm going to draw one more line, which is 256, because I've done 16 to the power of 0, which is 1, 16 to the power of 1, which is 16, 16 to the power of 256. Well, 256 exceeds my 185, so I don't actually going to need my 256th place. I can stop at my 16th place. Now, I need to determine how many times 16 will go into 185 evenly. So I'm going to set up a little division problem here. If I take 185 and I divide it by 16, I see that it goes in there evenly 11 times. So I'm going to put the equivalent of an 11 over my 16th place. Well, we talked about in the previous video that once we exceed the 9 of the hexadecimal, we then have to switch over to letters, where A is 10, B is 11. So I put a B over top of my 16. Now, I've used some of my value of 185. So I'm going to take my 185 and I'm going to subtract B times 16. Well, what is B? B is 11. So I'm going to multiply 11 times 16 and I get 176. So I have used 176 of the 185. So 185 minus 176 is 9. Now I'm going to move over to my ones place. How many times will 1 go into 9? Well, it goes 9. So there's my answer. 185 base 10 is B19 base 16. Let's do another one. We'll do 4011 base 10. Let me make myself some space here. Okay, so we're going to do 411 base 10. So again, I'm going to set up my lines. I've got a ones position. I know I'm going to have a 16th position, or 16th position. So I've got 16 to the power of 0 is 1. 16 to the power of 1 is 16. I think I'm going to have to keep going. So I'm going to do 16 to the power of 2, which is 16 times 16. That's going to give me 256. We do one more line. So now I'm going to go 16 to the power of 3, which is 16 times 16 times 16. So 16 times 16 times 16 is 4,096. Well, if I look at my 4,096 and I compare it to my decimal of 4,011, I can see that it exceeds. So I don't need it. So I'm going to cross that off. And I stop at my 256. There's only going to be 3 values in my hexadecimal. So first thing I want to do is I want to determine how many times will 256 go into 4011 evenly. So get out my calculator. 4011 divided by 256. It goes in 15 times evenly. So I'm going to put the equivalent of 15 over 256. If we go back to our letter chart, we're going to recognize that 15 in hexadecimal is an F. So I put F over my 256. Now, of my original 4,011, I have just used up 3,840 of my value because 15 times 256 is 3,840. So I have to subtract, that's a 0. So I have to subtract that from the 4,011. So 4,011 minus 3,840 leaves me 171. I'm going to move over to my 16th place now. How many times will 16 go into 171? Well, let's set up a math problem here. Made myself some room. So 16 goes into 171. Well, 171 divided by 16, it goes in evenly 10 times, and then there's a remainder. So the 10 goes over the 16. I'm like, I can't put 10 to what is the letter equivalent of 10. Well, that is an A. Now I have to multiply A times 16, or 10 times 16, to see how much of the 171 I've used. And I have used 160. So I do the subtraction. I have 11 left. Move over to the ones place. How many times will 1 go into 11? Well, it goes 11 times. So the 11 goes over the 1, only I can't use 11. I've got to use the letter equivalent because I've exceeded the 9. So it's B. So 4,011 base 10 is F, A, B, base 16.